9 on the Radio Whammo Breakfast. Let's catch up with Dylan Storey, who's currently staring into space down there through his Hubble telescope. Well, if only, eh? Thanks very much to the Auckland Stardome. Dylan, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Today we're talking about a daring mission by the Russians to go and visit a Martian moon.
Yeah. So they just announced that it's going to launch in 3 weeks, which I guess is the launch window to Mars, because that's also when the next NASA probe is going to Mars. So I guess you got Earth going around the sun on the inside and Mars on the outside. You've got a certain time when you can launch, sort of fling a probe out from Earth, and it'll get to Mars's orbit at the time that Mars is passing. So there's a narrow launch window, it seems, to get to Mars. So Russia have announced they want to send a sample return mission to one of Mars's moons, Phobos. And this is a daring mission. It'll be the first time any macroscopic samples have been returned since 1976, when the Russian Luna 24 probe returned samples from the moon.
Yeah.
So sort of dust from comets and from comet tails has been returned since then, but not actually larger samples. So not only would visiting the moon Phobos be quite a big thing, but they're proposing to land on it.
Yeah.
Dig down with a robotic arm and drill and take samples of dirt and rock.
Cool. And
then launch back off Phobos and send it into an orbit that will take it back to Earth and land. So that's quite a significant step in engineering achievement if they pull it off.
Have they ever done that before? Have they ever landed on anything, any kind of body, and then taken off again? Apart from our moon landings, with people.
No.
Mm.
So, no, they haven't. I mean, we've landed things on Mars, which just go down via, some of them go down via parachute, and sort of a great big bubble gets inflated around them.
And they bounce.
And they kind of bounce, yeah. Mm. That's how the previous Mars rovers landed. The last, the Phoenix mission that went to Mars's poles landed using thrusters and boosters, so it didn't fall. It sort of landed in a controlled way, but there's a lot more that can go wrong with that. The sensors have to be bang on. But landing on something like Phobos has much less gravity, so it's not going to be nearly such a difficult landing. But still, just purely the logistics of it, just getting there, the control of it, getting to land in this place.
Pretty amazing. Well, let's look at the spacecraft itself, because no offence to the engineers, and I'm sure that this is very high tech. But so you've got a picture here of a bunch of people standing around in white coats and caps. All looks very sterile and everything. But what they're looking at looks to me like a school project. It's a bunch of tin foil tied together with some straps and string and whatnot. What is it? It's weird.
Well, the tin foil is just this protective coating to stop bacteria. You want to keep even microparticles of dust out. So that's basically what all the mechanisms are there, wrapped in tin foil. They're assembled in sterile environments. So it's very
does it take engineering? Does it fly with the tin foil?
Yep.
Huh.
Some of it does. Some of it comes off before launch, where other components go on, but I think they wrap everything up when it's not,
because it's
not directly being worked on. A lot of it is heat protection too. So you're seeing the photo you can see there has got the heat shield on the bottom. It looks like, and then they sort of assemble the craft inside the heat shield.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot of heat protecting that goes on the final craft as well.
But it really does look like, a fantastical school kid project, put together with tinfoil and sticky tape. Doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I would venture to assume that there's reasonably high-tech equipment inside that tinfoil. It's not just the tinfoil.
Right. Okay.
But it is an interesting is an interesting machine because it consists of so many parts. So you got the rocket to take it into orbit, then you've got the what do you call it? The vehicle that goes between planets.
Yeah.
And then you've got what it's going to do is stay in orbit around Mars and Phobos for a number of months before it attempts its landing on Phobos. So then, when that happens, part of it will break off and go and land on Phobos, and then there's another part of that will launch back to Earth. So it actually consists of 4 parts of the main vehicle itself.
Yeah.
Plus, also, it's carrying a Chinese satellite as a sort of piggyback thing. So this will be China's first mission to Mars, and so it will also be jettisoned and go into orbit around Mars, and it will the 2 missions will cooperate to some extent, sort of collaborating data on Mars from orbit, which will help the whole.
But I mean,
help the whole mission.
Looking at the moon itself, I mean, it looks like like a piece of rock. It doesn't look anything like our moon. It looks, it's not perfectly round. It's just like chips taken out of it. How big is it compared to our moon?
Well, not very big, and that's why it doesn't look like our moon. Because for listeners who haven't got the video feed, it kind of looks a bit like a deformed potato.
Yes,
it's kind of got all these chunks out of it. So it's led some people to believe that Mars's moons are actually captured asteroids. So asteroids that are flying around in space, they look like this. Maybe they've been they got near Mars at just the right angle to go into orbit around it. So not very big. If it was bigger, it would be spherical. That's how things become spherical. Once there's a certain amount of accumulated mass, the collected particles will have enough gravity to make themselves round, to pull themselves into the smallest shape, which is, of course, a sphere.
Yeah.
So you depending almost entirely on mass, you get all these different shapes of things in space. You get up into a certain mass, you'll get these jagged rocks. Then you'll get sort of semi-spheroid objects like some of the larger asteroids, and then once there's more mass, they'll become a sphere. Something from off the top of my head, something about roughly about the quarter of the size of our moon will have enough mass to make itself spherical.
Okay.
So these moons of Mars are pretty small. You can't really see them from a telescope. You need a pretty powerful telescope to see them from Earth anyway.
Yeah.
Pretty decent telescope.
And so when's the mission taking off?
November. So the launch window is something like the 5th to the 25th of November. So that's the time where Earth and Mars are in the relative position. So you shoot something off from Earth and it'll catch up with the orbit of Mars as it goes past, sort of thing.
Okay. Cool.
And that's the same time as NASA's new probe to go to Mars is launching, which will also be very interesting. And so they take about 11 months to get there. So about this time next year, they'll all be arriving at Mars, and I expect they'll spend a bit of time orbiting before landing. So you can expect in about 2 or 3 years that we'll know a lot more about Mars. We might even have samples from Mars's moon.
That sounds good. Really looking forward to that. It'll be big news when it happens.
Same.
Let's
Hopefully
hope
they don't.
Yeah, crash.
Yeah.
Or something.
Hopefully they don't crash. Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully the tinfoil doesn't blow off on the way there. Very, very nice. Thanks very much, Dylan. Thanks very much to the Auckland Stardome Observatory. Got a nice place to hang out. And you can continue the conversation with Dylan over on Twitter as well, twitter.com/Dylan Storey. It's now 18 minutes past 9.